What is going on? What is going on? What is going on, everyone? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today, we have a very special episode. We are doing the first interview, the first of many, hopefully, on the YouTube channel. So if you're new here, thanks for coming along. If you got any questions for Mike, as we're gonna get into this, feel free to write in chat and be sure to try and get around to all of that. But we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Um, we've got Mike Greenwood. He is one of the two vocalists of deathcore band Angelmaker. They just released their third full-length album, Sanctum, about a month ago. About to head out on the Chaos and Carnage tour alongside Suicide Silence, Carnifex, Lorna Shore, Upon a Burning Body, Signs of the Swarm, and Distant. If that is not a stacked as fuck lineup, I don't know what is. Mike, happy to have you. What's going on?
Hell yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Dom.
Hell yeah. Thanks for taking the time, dude. Because from what I gather, you guys are going to be practicing probably in the next week, and kind of just prepping for that tour. So it was kind of like if we either we were doing it now or it's gonna be in a little bit. So
Yeah.
thanks
Yeah.
for coming along and taking the time.
Yeah,
What's
no worries.
what's that looking like for you guys in terms of tour prep and everything for the next week and so?
Yeah, so we have well, our guitarist Colton, he lives on Vancouver Island. So that's like it's like a few hours ish from here, maybe like two
Yeah.
hours, just like with the ferry and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
having him obviously come over and jam is important. Um and then we actually have we're trying out a new drummer this run, so fill in drummer for now, and we'll see what kind of leads from that. But yeah, having him fly in on the same day, so Colton and him are coming on Tuesday, and then yeah, jam for the week pretty much, getting ready, and yeah, that's like one end of things, and then the other end for me is just like making sure that like, which I have already, but you double check, triple check all those things that like all the merch is all sorted and
Yeah,
trailer rental
yeah.
and all those other things. So
Yeah, yeah, it's always
yeah,
a lot of stuff to get into. Is it a bit of a hassle for you guys in terms of going over the US? Like are you guys doing visas and stuff like that and that's a
yeah,
whole ordeal or yeah.
yeah. We applied for visas like I don't know, 3, 4 months ago, and they came in about a month ago, which is great.
Yeah.
And we didn't have to pay the rush, which is also like super great because paying the rush is really what
Yeah.
makes it expensive. It's not
Yeah.
so bad, like just for the visas themselves, but yeah, like with paying the rush, it's like that adds like a couple thousand
It's yeah,
dollars.
it's a
It's
couple grand.
crazy.
We
Yeah,
did the rush. We had no choice, and it was just like fuck, man. We gotta we got
I
we gotta tour
know.
a lot on
Yeah,
this visa to make it back. You know,
for sure, for sure. Yeah.
it's it's crazy, man. Because it's just like Seattle's what a few hours away from you guys. We're in the same situation here, where like Vermont is like literally an hour away from here. Like it's
Yeah.
less complicated for us to go there, technically speaking, than to go to Quebec City or Ottawa or anywhere else like here. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
But
no, it's the
it's
same thing. Like it's like, 5, 6 hours to like Calgary, Edmonton, and
yeah,
then like
that's it.
it's like
Going through the Rockies,
yeah, and
no
it's like
less.
45 minutes to the border. Like not
Yeah,
even 40 minutes to the border and then like yeah, not right in Seattle. Seattle's still 3 hours from where I am, but
yeah,
it's like right there. You
yeah.
know?
It's more accessible than most of the rest of Canada. That's for sure
Yeah.
for you guys.
Yeah.
Because then you get to Calgary, that's cool, but then what?
Yeah.
It's like the,
Yeah.
the next city is another fucking
Yeah.
6, 7, 8 hours away too. So it's like,
Exactly.
is Casey? I guess it was winter, I guess and all, but is Casey still like van lifing and stuff? Did he do that through the
Yeah,
winter as well,
for the
or
most part, he has a room that he rents right now, so he kind of has like a little studio set up and like he has like his computer and everything like set up in the room.
yeah,
And I know that like he kind of like stays like the room's kind of more as far as I know like storage kind of for him. So
yeah,
like yeah, little studio, little this and that. I
yeah,
do
yeah,
think he sleeps in there if it's like, you know, cold.
Yeah,
Like he
yeah, yeah.
rents the house with like four other people. So,
Okay.
and yeah, but he's still pretty van life
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. So
So that just makes it. I mean, between not having like solidified a proper drummer, between Colton being on Vancouver Island, between
yeah.
Casey being out doing his thing, there's a. I guess you guys are rehearsing weekly at this point. That's for sure.
No, no. But in the past one, so like, I always feel guilty saying this, but we've never really been a band that jams a lot.
Yeah.
Um we definitely like we went through that period for sure when we were younger, like when we weren't when it was more like a garage band, like high school band, just like for
Yeah.
fun. It was like, yeah,
Tour
like you
wasn't like the reason to do it or whatever. It was
no.
literally that's what it was for. It was for jamming, you know?
Yeah, just for fun. So like we would
Yeah.
jam like in high school and then like the years so after high school, we would jam like I think it was like once a week or once every 2 weeks we would kind of like meet up and jam and just like play the songs. And it was more like it still is for fun, but it was just
Yeah. No
purely
other
for
goal.
fun at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to jam. So yeah, and then as the years have gone on with like tours and stuff like that, like we don't and everyone has lives and jobs and all the
Yeah.
other stuff going on. So we don't jam a lot like when we're not preparing for tour. And then it's
Yeah.
like, the few weeks before tour we get in like 2 weeks of kind of jamming and
Yeah,
just get
just
it tight.
intensive jamming and just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
pray you remember the songs.
Yeah. We have a pretty like I'm always surprised how
Yeah.
well we like retain like those things. And then like we even like with the like some songs it's like, man, I've played Leech hundreds of times, hundreds. So it's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
some of those songs it's
That's
just
just
like
like autopilot at that point, I guess.
yeah, yeah. And then it's like it's the newer ones really that's like kind of like shaking off the rust or really like figuring out a part that's like, oh yeah, like that's actually a little harder than I would have anticipated when I was in the
Eh,
studio. So
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah, or
yeah.
just things that I guess maybe were done in the studio that aren't even necessarily doable like live. You know, that you kind of
We,
just figure out when you're doing it. You're like, oh shit.
we do a pretty good job of keeping that in mind when we are in
Yeah.
the studio.
I mean,
I'll
three
like
three guitars and two vocalists definitely helps.
yeah. But
Because I
like
mean, if I'm doubling my parts, that's it. Like I can't do it.
yeah, no, for sure. Like I'll be like, okay, by this point in this like vocal phrasing or whatever this part, I'll be running out of breath. So yeah, Casey, that's you right there. That's
Yeah, yeah. Just tagging along. Yeah.
yeah.
That that's cool. That's cool. What so what's life looking like for you right now? I know you gig the rickshaw every now and then, a venue you got
Yeah.
back home. You've been doing Twitch, some cameos, some
Yeah, a
featured X
little bit, yeah.
stuff. Yeah, like
Yeah.
what's a typical day for you recently? Like, do you have any other jobs or anything right now?
So like yeah, I work at a few venues kind of part-time. The main venue that I work at most of the time is like the Vogue Theater here.
Okay.
It's like a 1,300 kind of capacity venue.
Okay.
So it's like a little like a medium-sized theater, I guess. And I've been working that for the past like 3 years part-time. Like it's just like you get the call and are you
Yeah.
available to do the show? Sure. Um, so I've been doing that, especially like the past year, like when shows finally started to come back and everything like that. Like,
Right. Because for a
wanted to
while
get it going.
that was all
Yeah.
gone, right?
Well, like
Yeah.
for a while, I had nothing to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was very sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was playing too much video games and smoking way too much weed. So, but
Passing time, do what you got to
yeah,
do.
yeah. Yeah, no tours, and I was working at the Vogue at that time too, and like just no shows, so there was like nothing
Mm,
going on. So
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of like took a little bit of time when there wasn't anything going on to just like start planning and like reevaluating things. I haven't really put some of those plans into motion 100% now, but just like
Yeah.
really like getting the groundwork like laid for those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, being like I would like to start streaming Twitch like regularly and all those
Okay.
kinds of other things. I'm working on a clothing brand
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff
it.
like that. So
Cool.
But yeah,
Stuff that
like
doesn't depend on being in person somewhere or
yeah, yeah,
like having to show up in crowds, I guess.
yeah.
Stuff you can do more so on your own time, I guess, too, right?
Yeah, yeah, and kind of do remotely as well. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
like kind of the goal is like doing stuff that doesn't necessarily like have me be locked into like one kind of place. Like, as long as I
Mm-hmm.
can kind of keep the plans kind of going and the ideas flowing, then like I can just like, make some extra money here and there doing that stuff and then the band and all that. But
Yeah,
yeah, recently though, like the last honestly like 2 years, a lot of my time was taken up by planning the record.
that's it.
Like all the planning for Sanctum was like very extensive just because of like how we
Yeah.
decided to do the record with like the quadrants first and kind of stuff like that. And yeah, we did 4 music videos and yeah, it's just like a lot of planning. And then yeah, I like facilitated a lot of like the processes through the record as I kind of usually do. And yeah, building like the merch pre-orders and sourcing all the designs and all that stuff. So yeah, the band
Yeah, just
takes a
all
lot
the,
of my
the
time.
manager stuff in the end,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
getting it all
Yeah.
together. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, I know the feeling. I know what goes into
Yeah.
it, but you guys definitely did a lot for Sanctum. We'll
Yeah.
get into that in just a little bit, but crazy amount of work that went into that, like for sure. And I can see. It's kind of weird with COVID, I guess. A lot of bands decided to not really release anything throughout COVID, but
Yeah.
then throughout that, we've seen a bunch of bands break up. We've seen it just from, I guess, from
Yeah.
not being able to get into the same room and stuff like that. I feel like you guys really just took that time to. I think it was a good timing for you. I mean, there's never a good timing for COVID. Let's just be clear. But I mean, you guys put out the self-titled in 2019, right?
Yeah.
So kind
Yeah.
of sucks. Well, you guys were able to tour off of it for the first year and a bit.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened, but I mean, at that point, at least you were able to tour a bit off of it. And then the rest of the time, it seems like you guys just started prepping for the next album, which I guess is a good use of your time during COVID, right?
Yeah.
Because I know,
Yeah.
I know so many bands that it was just like, okay, well, we can't. We know we're not going to be touring or playing shows, so no one's doing anything. There's nothing being written. It's just like the
Yeah.
motivation out the window, and just kind of waiting for it to come back for months and months, and then a year, and then 2 years, and then it just that's it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
I don't know.
was yeah, self-titled was great. Came out while we were on tour. Yeah, and then we had like a few other tours that year that were all great. And then yeah, basically 2020, like it was end of 2019, but 2020
Yeah,
happened and then it was like, well, how long is this going to go on for?
yeah,
And then it was around that time when I think, yeah, writing had started for the
hmm
record. And then, yeah, we went into the studio like late 2020, like November kind of time.
okay,
And then um, it took forever to get finished.
yeah,
Yeah, just like after, like we submitted files and it took a long time for us to get first mix back.
okay.
And then, yeah, once we kind of finalized the record and everything like that, then it was, well,
Then
actually,
start planning the rest. Like,
kind of like I actually, because everything was taking so long, we had to record some of the music videos using like,
the pre-pros and stuff, or
they
the
weren't
the rough
pre-pros,
mixes, or
yeah, rough mixes. Like,
yeah,
so at least they were like timing and everything wasn't going to be changed like of
yeah.
them. It was just like minor little like sonic kind of changes,
As a videographer, that would fucking suck, dude. I would feel that pain using like a complete, parts completely changed. You're like,
Yeah.
what do I put here?
Everything was pretty close. We let our engine like so we had like we tracked it locally here with one of our friends Tim Creviston. He did a great job.
Yeah,
And then we submitted the tracks to like Will Putney and
yeah.
yeah, it was great working with Putney. But
It
I know
sounds
he's like
great, by the way. It sounds
thank
really
you.
good. I
Thank
really
you.
enjoy the mix.
Thank you so much. Yeah, he's such a busy guy. So like,
Yeah.
we had to be like, work within his schedule and his timeline, of
Hmm.
course, and then, just kind of be like, well, we at least need like a rough mix or a mix one so we can just
Yeah,
like at
yeah,
least
yeah.
shoot these videos and then yeah, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Always just kind of having to be after the person, and I get it. We've been there too. I mean, Chris Donaldson here was the same story for a couple of albums. It was just like, okay, when are we doing this? Oh, well, this bigger band decided that they're taking your time slot, so that's that. I'm like, okay, but what the fuck, So it's
Yeah, I
hard. It's
think
hard to feel not how do you say it, like not taken as a priority also in those kind of scenarios, I guess.
yeah. I mean, I know that like Will's so fucking big, and I know he was working on Knock Loose's record at the same time as our record, and that record
Yeah.
is, huge and sounds crushing. And then I think at the same time when he was working on a record, he had to go to the Grammys for the Grammy ceremony because he won a
Oh,
Grammy for that Body Count record.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, no less. It's just iced tea, no
Yeah,
biggie.
So,
That's cool
yeah.
though. Do you guys have a lot of like writing to do in the studio? Like, is there a big producer role going on for whoever's recording, or are you guys mostly coming in with pretty finished songs?
Everything's pretty finished. Like every record that we've done, there's minor kind of production that gets added. Like more just like, hey, why don't you play what about the drums being like this instead of
Yeah,
that? Or what
more like
about,
effects and stuff, and
yeah, or like, what about a lead over this part? Like, they'll suggest, and then stuff is kind of written in the moment. But most of the
hmm
stuff's pretty done. Like
yeah,
we always show up to the studio with everything like pretty solid, and nothing really changes too much.
yeah. Do you have full pre-pros and stuff at that point? Like, do you guys record vocals and everything to them
Yeah,
too?
yeah. The vocals are usually like pretty damn rough, but at least it's like all lyrics are written for the most
Yeah,
part, and like
patterns and
all,
everything. That's what
yeah,
counts.
yeah,
It's always like the rough part. Like for me specifically, it'd be like I can write lyrics, that's cool, but then actually getting the patterns down and really like knowing how things are going to be said and when, that's like the part that takes longest for me, at least.
yeah, yeah. With us, it's like we have to figure those things out like ASAP because of the two vocalist thing. Like
Yeah.
Casey and I really have to like we so for the self-titled, there was a few songs that were written for the self-titled in the studio. They weren't
Mm.
written with the producer. It was kind of written at the same time
Okay.
as like, oh, guitars are being tracked and drums are being tracked. So like Casey
Yeah.
and I are in another room like writing the record. Like we had our laptops and a little interface and a
Yeah. Yeah.
microphone
Yeah.
just being like, all right, let's go. Um but I did find that process a little stressful. Like
Yeah.
you're already there, and you're like, "Well, we need to figure this out now," and like
Yeah.
you're kind of like kind of like forcing things to happen, which
Yeah.
works. But um,
I think a
yeah,
lot of people strive on that, I guess, but it must just depend on who you are. I've never
for
had
sure.
to write on a deadline like that. I don't feel like I don't imagine myself be working great in that sort of environment.
Yeah, I think like I know for a fact that like one of the songs that was written like in the studio like within like somewhat of a deadline like for us was the song Requiem that we get like a lot of
Yeah.
praise for, which
Okay.
is cool, and that song like it worked out perfectly given that scenario.
Yeah.
But then I can also think of like on the self-titled there's a song called Origin, and that was like one of the last songs like we wrote for the self-titled, and
Mm-hmm.
I like hated writing that song. Like I felt like
Uh,
I was just so drained of being like, we need to do this now, like figure this out now, like write the part now, like, and I was just like, man, I kind of like just like hate this song. Like
yeah.
and now looking forward at it, like or looking back at it now, like I don't hate the song, like, and it
Mm-hmm.
actually has some really cool parts, but I remember just being in that moment of just being
Yeah.
like I hate this,
I mean,
like,
but it kind of becomes a memory at that point, It kind of becomes like attached to the song. Just
yeah,
the same way that you listen to a song while you're going through something outside of you like
yeah,
recording it, and you kind of get that emotional response from it. I can definitely see. I have songs like that, I guess. I would have. That's something I've never written about, something like super, super personal, but I can imagine that sort of stuff really being like super intense to then perform and listen back to and stuff.
yeah,
Just being in that mind state, that state of mind, and really, I don't know. Then when you listen back to it, that's what you think about, right? Like that's what it's
for sure.
about. That's a I
For
don't know.
sure. Yeah, no. Yeah, I still have a tough time listening to Requiem myself.
Hmm.
Uh And yeah, like some other songs like definitely like evoke a little bit more emotion than others. But also like sometimes like live I'm so immersed into like the
Mm,
performance aspect of things
yeah.
that I'm like, oh, I just got to do this low, like really sick right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't even think of what the lyrics are. I'm just like,
Yeah.
do the high really high, like
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. You get in a bubble too, right? Like for me, I just kind of get into a trance. Like there's not,
yeah.
I could basically forget like what was going through my mind throughout a set, and it just becomes like an autopilot thing, which is particular. You were talking earlier about just not jamming consistently and just jamming before tours and stuff. I forget my lyrics and shit. Like if I have to think about it too much. So I feel like
Oh man.
we usually would have like we'd usually jam like once a week kind of thing. So I never really
Yeah.
had the time to forget lyrics. But we'd bring old songs back into the set, or like
Oh yeah, and
wouldn't
you're like,
jam
oh
for a
man.
while. Like at the end when we were touring more, we wouldn't really jam that much between tours. And every time we get back into it, I was like, oh my god, like what are even the lyrics like?
Yeah,
Just
for
because
sure.
you know them, but they just have to come out. Oh, stretching
Yeah.
out, faintly like paint me like one of your French
Yeah,
ladies.
exactly. Um, no, for me, like one of the hardest things, people are always like, "Oh, that part in your song where the lyrics go like blah, like whatever it is." I can't remember what lyrics are part of what part of the song. Like if somebody's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, the part in Leech where you say blah 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 blah,"
Nah.
I I don't even know where that is. I like
Yeah,
I have to like it's like fucking
you
doing
press
the
play.
alphabet is or it's like doing the
Y-
alphabet as a kid. You're like, "Where's K?" You're like, A B C D E F G. Like you have to
Yeah,
go all the way through it to find it. Like that's how I am with songs. People ask about like, "Oh,
you say
what
you
about
say
the
as a
part
kid,
in?"
but I'm still like that.
Yeah. I mean, I've been known to do that as well.
Maybe not out loud, but
But it's like that. Like somebody will be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, like yeah, what's the part in Bloodthirster where you say, this?" And I'm like, "Bloodthirster," and then I like literally have to go to the beginning of the song and be like,
Yeah. Go through it.
"Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that part, yeah, yeah, yeah," like because I don't know what it is. It's like that autopilot thing. You're like, "Okay, here's the song." You write it.
Yeah.
I'm so used to it being like from a start to an end kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when somebody's like, "Here's the middle," and you're like, "I,
Maybe.
I don't, sure," like.
I've thought about this a lot. Like I really do think that some people know my lyrics more than I do. Like for
Yeah,
sure.
for
Like
sure. Yeah.
I've it hasn't happened often. I remember vividly this one time I just like forgot lyrics halfway through a song. Like I started thinking about it and it just
Oh yeah,
threw me off.
if you overthink it, it's the
And
worst.
I was just like, I can't do this. And then I could see people singing the lyrics, and I was like, I feel so dumb right now. Like other people know what the lyrics are, and I don't. Like, fuck.
Yeah, there's been once or twice mid set where I'm just like, I don't know where I am. Like I don't what are the lyrics to the song? Like I don't really know. And then I start like, yeah, you overthink it and you're like, oh fuck, like I'm gonna fuck it all up. Yeah,
And
that
that's when you fuck it
is
up.
yeah. And then the only other time with that kind of scenario in mind is like I've played Leech so many times, like, and
Yeah.
it's one of our biggest songs, so I've played it tons and tons of times.
Hmm.
But Leech, more than any other song, it has a repeating chorus, but the first time the chorus like um goes through, it's like one set of lyrics, and we
Yeah.
like it has a different trading pattern for Casey and I. It's very simple, but it's slightly different.
Yeah.
And then the chorus repeats at the end almost the same, but with different lyrics and a different pattern. And
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
like, and it'll be like, usually we play that song either first or last in our
Yeah.
set. And I'll be like going through it, and then I'll just be like, is the
I
song
don't know which one
done?
it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, is the song done now or is it not done now? Like, I'll have done the wrong pattern for the first chorus and just be like, song's done. And it's like, no, you're only like a minute and a half into the song. Like, there's no like, so yeah. I've definitely done that once or twice where I'm like, those were the wrong lyrics, and Casey's looking at me like, sir, like,
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. That it's probably not gonna do repeating lyrics anymore from now on.
Dude, all our lyrics have seems like, especially more on this new record than the previous. Like we wrote,
Hmm.
a lot of this record is more formulated into like traditional like song structure. So like
Yeah.
a lot of the songs have like repeating choruses and like a bridge and breakdown and pre-chorus and kind of stuff like that. So like
Hmm.
um yeah, we like previously in the past we kind of like had a little bit more of like open flow to things, and we still do for certain songs, but we try to focus on like kind of chorus forward and just like a little bit more moments that leave it like more memorable than just being like, oh, here's 5 minutes of a song that never repeats and has like a bunch of
Yeah.
different parts, like, you know.
Deps went through the exact same thing. Like we would just write song, and I used to say, and I still kind of do, but like a song that doesn't have a repeating riff, I used to love that fucking shit, and we were all
Yeah.
about it, you know. Like
Yeah.
here we go, 5 minutes of nothing repeating, it's cool. But as time went on, we were kind of like, yeah, it's cool. But like the bands that we ended up finding were really cool were bands that had some memorable moments and
Yeah.
memorable riffs. So whether it be just bringing a main riff back or whether it be something that's a bit more of a chorus type thing, I mean, people get kind of riled up with the term chorus when you relate it
Yeah.
to metal, but I mean it's it's there are so many ways of making a chorus be super metal and still
Oh,
brutal
for
and all
sure.
these things
Yeah.
and be memorable, right? And I think
Yeah.
a lot of that is lost in metal, you know.
Yeah.
It's like it's almost like tech death, you know.
Yeah.
My main gripe with tech death is that lack of like
Yeah.
chorus structure and repeating riffs and stuff like that. And obviously there are exceptions to that.
For
Like
sure.
Archspire on their latest album do it so fucking good. They
Yeah.
have a
I was
bunch of like
literally about to
repeating
say that.
parts and
Yeah.
choruses and stuff. And that to me is like tech death done right. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get lost in the sauce.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I was literally just gonna bring up Archspire as well. I think like that band, local legends for us.
Yeah.
But I've always appreciated what they've done, but their older material was a little bit more like to your what you're saying, like the standard tech death thing where it's like it's all just crazy riffs and nothing repeats and there's not like too many of those things. They had certain songs that like had that anchor, but their
Yeah.
new record is like a lot better songwriting wise. Like it's
Yeah.
always been technically and musically like insane. That's never changed. But the songwriting I think is stronger now so that you are reminded of like, oh, it's this song because it has this part
Yeah.
that comes back or whatever. And there's
Yeah.
there's a few other tech bands like Surreption is another band I think like does really
Love
cool.
Surreption. Yeah, and
Yeah.
they've always been doing that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they're like tech, but they have a lot of older style death metal influence too, you
Yeah.
know. And I feel
Yeah.
that's where it kind of comes in because a lot of bands like that, even like I don't know, Dying Fetus or Cephalic Carnage and bands like that, they always kind of had that formula for having like main riffs and like chorus
Yeah.
type stuff coming back
Yeah.
too.
Cannibal Corpse
Um,
and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, although not necessarily like a style I appreciate as much personally, like that the songwriting aspect of it, I've always been
Yeah.
like, okay, that makes sense. This is cool. This is like memorable and listenable, you know.
Yeah.
Let's dig a little deeper into Sanctum because we've talked about it a bit so far. But first off, I mean, congrats on the success so far.
Thank you.
You know, we're looking at you guys posted like 3 million streams
Yeah. Yeah.
on Spotify within like the first month of it coming out.
Yeah.
In contrast, I mean, the self-titled, which is 4 years old at this point, has 9 mil,
9.
something like
Yeah.
that, which is super cool. But like
Yeah.
already on a steady uphill, you know.
Yeah.
The music videos have been doing super well as well. You touched on this a little bit earlier, but I do want to talk about the rollout to this album with the music videos and how you put it out in like dual singles kind of thing in the quadrant thing. Especially it was never really mentioned that it was going to lead up to an album either, which I thought was interesting as well. You kind of didn't know when the dual drops were going to stop, you know, and then they were all out at one point, and then it was like, oh, hey, we're adding like another 8 songs. Here you go.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about kind of like the thought process? Was there like an influence there or people you talked about, or was this your guys' idea? What was the thought process through that rollout?
Yeah, so kind of goes back to like what we were originally talking about, like with COVID. I don't think okay, like we had been playing around with this idea for a while. COVID or not, there was like an
Yeah.
idea of doing um, like a just a different way of putting out a record. I had seen um the first influence for me of this was a rap group called Suicide Boys.
Yeah.
They put out they first of all they're machines. They put out music like
All the time,
constantly,
right?
which
Yeah.
is crazy. But one of the coolest things I thought that they did in the past is they did this like they called it a saga of EPs called the Kill Yourself Saga,
Okay.
and they did like um they essentially did like I think they're on like they've done at least 10 EPs now, but I think they did like five kind of I don't even 100% remember. I think it was they did five whatever in a pace at the beginning, and they were like small EPs with like 2 songs or so on them.
Yeah.
But then once they hit five, the fifth EP to the 10th EP, they put
Yeah.
them all out on the same day.
Okay.
So you were like, oh shit, like this artist just dropped 5 EPs on the
Yeah.
same day. Like that's
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks
Mhm.
of like, whoa, like that's the word of just saying like 5 EPs in one day is like, holy crap, that's amazing. But
Yeah.
when you really look at it, it was 2 songs on 5 EPs, which equals 10 songs, which is
Yeah. Which
basically a
maybe
record.
even less than a full length, you know?
Exactly. So like they dropped a record today. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cut into 4 or 5 EPs, but it's still pretty much a record. So
Yeah. And
like
people are talking about it, right?
exactly, and it makes people talk. So
Hmm.
that was like my first exposure to that idea, and I thought it was just like such a cool idea. I just like loved how they did it. And
Hmm.
then yeah, COVID kind of happened and this and that. And then I'm gonna shout out another band that did it well. It wasn't because they did it that we did it this way, but
Yeah.
it was kind of as we had already started to formulate this idea to do it.
Yeah.
Acacia Strain did Slow Decay,
Oh, yeah.
and
True. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. With the letters and all. Yeah.
exactly. And I thought how they did that was super cool. Like the artwork
Hmm.
kind of changing, the letters, they called it Decay. It came out slow, so Slow Decay. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
all those kinds of things. And, um, and shout out to Acacia Strain for doing something different in a world where, a lot of metal bands are sticking to a tradition. I also heard that that record for them was their highest streaming record since Wormwood. So,
Oh,
you
shit.
know,
Okay. Cool.
yeah, the release worked out really well for them.
Hmm.
But yeah, not just because they did that, we did this. So, but I just want to talk about like those kind of 2 bands or 2 artists as an example of like
Yeah.
what kind of was like, oh, this is cool and it's working and
Hmm.
stuff like that. Because I know there's other bands that have done stuff like that in the past as well. But yeah, kind of coming back full circle, COVID was what really kind of set it in motion because we were worried that, we wanted to write this record,
Mm.
and we usually do, for lack of, good or bad, we do longer records. So,
Yeah.
um, we wrote all these songs, and we weren't really sure when we were going to be able to tour again or play
Hmm.
shows or like promote. And that's like the typical, like standard way to promote a record is like
Yeah.
you either put out
Yeah.
singles,
Yeah.
tour on the singles, or you put out or you're about to put out a record, set a tour around that so you can kind of promote those things. um so,
First week sales and yada
yeah,
yada.
all
Being
that kind of
live.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we formulated this idea that like, okay, like what if we took originally it was going to be, which I'm very glad we didn't do this way. Originally it was going to be the full record split into fourths. So there was
Okay.
going to be like
Like
more
for a
songs,
song. Yeah.
yeah, on each quadrant. But then I was like, well, what's the incentive for people to buy the record once it's like
Hmm.
once we announce the record for
Right.
pre-sale
Because
or
then all the
whatever?
songs are out. Right.
Yeah, all the songs are already out. Then like, what's
Yeah.
the point? And like that was one, not jocking them at all, but that was one issue that people had with like the Acacia Strain release
Hmm.
was like they did, I think it was like 8 songs up front or whatever, 10 songs up
Yeah.
front, and then they got 2 extra songs
Yeah.
like once the record came out. So some people
Yeah.
were like, well, it's not really worth the wait because I waited like all this time to just get 2 extra songs and I've already heard their full record. So kind of keeping that in
And
mind, I was
you've
like,
been hearing it for a while too, right? Like some of the
yeah,
songs you've been already listening to for like a month or two, right? You're already
yeah,
maybe tired of these songs.
yeah.
And I'm assuming they put out singles forward that were maybe some of their better songs off the record. So you're potentially left with like the two worst songs on the album that weren't pushed forward. You know, it's like, so
Yeah.
what's the point? You
Yeah.
know, like,
Exactly.
yeah,
So yeah, we were like, well, why don't we do two songs and four kind of quadrants,
yeah,
and then we'll have a little bit of space. Like everything kind of just ended up happening as it happened. Like where we ended
hmm,
up having all the four quadrants out, and then it was like Christmas, and I was like, well, fuck, man, like people are so busy during like December with
yeah,
Christmas and all that other stuff, New Year's and everything. So like we were like, well, let's let them have the month. They can jam out all the other stuff that we've already put out. Come
yeah.
January, we'll announce the record. Um,
Okay.
so like
So it
that was
wasn't
really
even
it.
really planned and ahead of time. You guys kind of got to
We
January and you're like,
we
okay,
had
let's.
plans, but it was a lot of different setbacks that set us like back, like
Yeah,
with
yeah.
music videos not being done by
Mm,
like certain deadlines, and the record
yeah, yeah.
itself like taking as long as it did to mix and master. So like there was lots of things that we kind of just had to like pivot with and be like,
Hmm.
okay, well,
Just adapt.
initially we were gonna have everything come out on in this month, and now it's gonna be next month, and then
Hmm.
so we kind of had to keep like moving forward with it, which is kind of, I guess, in some senses, the benefit of like being independent, that like we can kind of make those decisions like on the
Yeah,
roll and not be so like stuck to being like, a record label's like, I don't give a,
that's it. Yeah, that's it.
I don't care whether your music video is not done. You either put out the song or you don't right now, like kind of
Hmm.
thing. So
Hmm.
we had that as a benefit, but one other like big piece to the puzzle, like jumping forward and backwards with the release idea, but
Yeah, yeah, you're good.
um, it started with like one of the most important parts for us was also the artwork. Like we wanted to have an artwork for the record that could have been split into four.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that was like the idea when we first approached like Grin Design,
Yep.
that we were like, we have this idea, and we also like the last two records we've worked with like an art director. His name's Kevin Moore. He works at a company called Soft Surrogate, and he
Yeah.
works
Yeah, I
for
love his
Rise
stuff. Yeah.
Records. Yeah, Kevin's awesome. We approached Kevin with this idea, and we got him in the loop with
Hmm.
Robert. And we're like, yeah, we want to do this record where it's gonna be released kind of in four parts. So the artwork, we want it to be like kind of available to be split into four, which ended up having like for us it was like it's like a symmetrical artwork almost per each
Yeah.
side, and then like each quadrant mirrors each other a little bit. There's
Hmm.
some little nuances that keep it fresh, so it's not like a cut and paste
Yeah.
mirror image of everything, but that was like one really important idea for us as far as like doing the quadrants and kind of keeping it
Hmm.
in that idea, and then working with
Because the
Kevin.
logo though is developing as with each one
Exactly.
too,
And
right? Yeah.
that was with Kevin. We, wanted him to create a new sigil for the record,
Yep.
like cuz we had a similar thing with the last record. Kevin did a sigil for the self-titled, and the
Hmm.
sigil was split into six parts to represent each member.
Oh,
Um
okay.
yeah, so he did something similar like that for us in the past, and we loved how it came out, and we wanted to do something similar with this record where we
Hmm.
wanted a symbol that was kind of building into this complete sigil.
Yeah, it wasn't
And
just like four different logos, you know. It was like
yeah,
one logo that was progressively getting like shown, right? Like
yeah.
revealed.
So that was like that was just as important as like choosing which songs and stuff. So like it kind of like
Hmm.
became like it was like artwork, sigil, all that needed to like be in place for these things, and then it was choosing the songs for each quadrant,
Yeah.
and also having one song of each quadrant have a
The
music
music
video.
video,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was a lot of little planning with all those things to kind of like put it all together and make things happen. And um,
Hmm.
yeah, we shot like the first two videos here with like a local guy. His name's
Yep.
Connor. Connor Gilkinson, great. He works at Ravencraft. Um, and yeah, we did Creators and Vengeance first, and then
Yep.
and just adapt and conquer. We were actually gonna put Vengeance out for the third quadrant and originally, and What I
Yep.
Would Give was supposed to be coming second, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but we just couldn't make things
Yeah, the
happen. So
deadlines and
yeah,
everything, it just didn't
yeah,
line up.
yeah. So and
Yeah.
then we went to Saskatoon to shoot
Exit wounds or
exit signs and What I Would
exit sign,
Give.
sorry.
Yeah, and what I would give. And we worked with Dylan at Versa Films. He did like the Spirit Box music videos, which was one of the
Yep.
reasons why we wanted to go and work with him. We kind of wanted like two more standard metal kind of music videos, like just
Mm-hmm.
performance, nothing crazy. And then we wanted two with just like a little bit more going on, which ended up being those two songs. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and that was it's kind of I've rambled a little bit, but that's kind of like,
No, but that's
the
just how much stuff went into it. Like that's what
yeah.
I was curious about because there's just there's every time you guys were putting something else out, I was like, Jesus, like more and more. But then what really surprised me in the end was the rest of the album. And with 8 songs already out, I was like, okay, kind of like a Case Strain. I was assuming it'd be like an extra 2 songs or something like that. But then I see the track list, and it's like, oh no, we've got like what is it, eight extra songs? What does
It
it total to?
was
It's 14 or 16?
it's
It's
14
14 in
songs.
total, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
so
think it's
so
six
six extra
extra.
songs,
Yeah.
which is a
Yeah.
lot, right?
Yeah.
It's almost
Yeah.
as much
It's
as
a
what you
whole
guys had
EP.
already
Yeah.
previously put out.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay, cool. Now I'm like super stoked to have this actual record come out.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just thought the whole rollout was pretty interesting. You guys partnered with Blood Blast too, right?
Yeah.
For this record.
Yeah.
Was it the first time you guys? The previous record, I don't think they were even around, right?
No.
Yeah.
We did some stuff like before this record to kind of like figure things out with Blood Blast. Our point of contact through Blood Blast is one of my really good friends. His name's Bryce Lucian. I've known
Okay.
Bryce for years through
Yeah.
touring. And yeah, Bryce like approached us 2019, and it was like Bryce and I had had many conversations on tour about like how I'm like, I've always been kind of, for lack of a better term, like anti-label. Like I don't
Yeah.
think that labels are necessarily like the be all the end all. I think there's like a time and
Absolutely
place
not. Yeah, for sure.
there's a time and place for labels. There's a time and place for certain artists to be on a label. Like I
Hmm.
understand, especially in other genres of music. Like I get it. Like, you know,
Well, there's a market for everything,
yeah,
technically speaking,
yeah,
but it's not
yeah.
a one shoe fits like one size fits all
No,
kind of thing.
exactly. So, and yeah, we've always been kind of stuck in the independent way of kind of doing stuff. And yeah, it was like 2019. Bryce called me out of nowhere, and he was like, "Man, I have to talk to you about this idea that like." And he was like, "I just started working in this new company. They're called Blood Blast." Kind of explained to me like how it all worked, and he's like immediately like the first band I thought of like working with and like getting this
On
going
board with the
was,
prod, yeah.
yeah, was you guys. And so we started working with them before this record, and we had worked with like kind of um like monetizing more of like our older material using
Yeah.
like their softwares and algorithms and stuff, and just like and trying to get like some extra playlisting and stuff for like older
Right.
songs. That was kind of like our first like you know um tested the waters with them. And yeah, this record was like our first like release like that was like done
Yeah.
through them, and it was really cool. Like in the past we've struggled with getting Spotify playlists because they're like,
Hmm.
it's kind of this monopoly a little bit of like, there is ways to get on Spotify playlists independently, but it's a lot easier if you have somebody
Well, if you
who's
have the
represent
contacts
you.
and
Yeah,
actual people
they'll just
that
like
you can
they're like,
hit
sure,
up, yeah.
yeah, you
Yeah,
can,
yeah, yeah.
you pitch a song and they're like, okay, and they throw it on there. Not necessarily. There is a process of them
No,
being
but they
like,
have relationships with labels and stuff
yeah,
that they don't necessarily have with independent people, that are just like
exactly.
they must have people pitching them songs every like
Oh,
dozens a day, hundreds a day if not,
yeah,
so
yeah,
I can understand that process being intense too. But for context for anyone listening, Blood Blast mainly does, I guess, digital distribution, right?
yeah, yeah.
So
So,
and they're like a subsidiary of Nuclear
nu-
Blast.
yep, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't do anything to do with like physical distribution or merchandising or
Mm-hmm.
any of that. They just like help facilitate the digital sales, which is exactly like one of the big reasons why I wanted to work with them after like hearing everything like that was uh you know they're essentially like there's these platforms like CD Baby and DistroKid
Yeah.
and um it's a TuneCore or something like all
Yeah.
these,
Yeah,
That you just like you pay a service for them to distribute your stuff through, the digital markets. Um, Essentially, Blood Blast is the exact same thing. Like
yeah,
and the big thing for me that like sold me on working with them was like that we own 100% of our masters. So
that's it.
they take a percentage as per usual of
Yeah,
anything.
to be
Even
expected. Yeah, of
well,
course.
even CD Baby and DistroKid
Yeah,
and all those other they take a percentage too. So like no
hmm
matter what, you're not
yeah.
like that's just the way
That's
the market
that's
is.
that's how it works. People are
Yeah,
working for you, and so you
yeah,
pay them. You
yeah,
can set all those things up by yourself, but I mean, you're going to be paying for like a cut to Apple too, and a cut to
yeah.
Spotify too, anyways, right?
Exactly.
So it's an
Exactly.
extra cut, but I mean that's normal. That's just how it works.
Exactly. So, yeah, it was just like, kind of allowed us to have complete control. They're like super chill people, love working with Bryce. He's always like when we told them about the idea of like doing this quadrant release and it ended up being like a record and whatever, they were like, they were 100% on board. They thought it was like a really awesome idea.
Yeah.
So they helped us in whatever way we needed to kind of like facilitate those things like with yeah, just like artwork and well like just like putting it up on the Spotify and this and that. So
Yeah, and getting things out on time and having things
yeah,
release and
yeah.
keeping track, probably, I'm assuming, of numbers and
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like that too.
yeah, yeah.
And then,
So
like you say, playlisting is huge, right?
yeah,
So that can really make or break like singles or
yeah,
proper releases.
yeah,
So I think in our day and age, maybe this wasn't the case even 5 years ago, but now, I mean, playlisting and plays on Spotify is just that's the new metric, right? For better or for worse, there's bots everywhere still, and everything
yeah.
can still be faked. It's the same thing as Facebook likes used to be and stuff like that,
Yeah.
But
Instant
that's the
followers.
main metric people are going off of, especially with COVID right now. It's not like you can base yourself off of show tickets, right?
No.
Because that would be like the be all end all of like knowing how big your band is or how much you can sell and stuff, like selling merch and selling tickets to shows.
Debatably
But
though, debatably, because I have this argument with people all the time. It's like,
okay,
well, like it's not really factual because like let's say like I'm gonna choose like ABC. Let's say
yeah,
like headliner band A goes on
right,
tour
yeah,
and that's their headliner tour, right? So then
mm-hmm.
you assume that however many tickets are sold for the
Yeah,
show is based
mm-hmm.
on them being there, right?
Probably not though. Yeah,
Well, that's what I'm saying. So like what
yeah,
if
yeah, yeah,
the like, what if you have support band B who just does like okay in general? Like they
mm-hmm.
draw a little bit, they sell a little bit. But then you have the opener who's like band C and they're huge right now. They're like the
Yeah,
hottest shit on fucking earth. People
yeah,
absolutely love them. And you have all these people come to the show to see band
that
C,
band.
the opener
Yeah,
band, and then everybody leaves after that band.
mm-hmm.
How do
That's
you
not
judge?
reflected. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
but how do you judge like is that like representative of like band C's ticket sales or band
mm-hmm.
A's ticket sales? What does that
Mm-hmm.
represent? It doesn't represent anything. It just represents how well the show did. And then
No, yeah, that's right.
there's so many other things that play a factor is that as well as like what day of the week is it? Like is there
Yeah,
other tours
the
around of this?
market,
Yeah.
yeah, everything. Yeah,
Like I
there's no
just don't
storm that day. It's
no,
like
like
yeah,
I
yeah,
get it. I just don't
yeah.
think that is 100% representative of like what a band's worth is like how
Mm-hmm.
much tickets are sold at a show. Like that doesn't like I've done tours where the headliner band gets like a 50% walkout after like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
two
yeah.
sports play.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa like or nobody comes for the first bands on that
Yeah,
bill and only comes for the
or they're
headliner.
all outside
You know?
smoking.
Yeah. So like I don't know. I
Yeah.
I have a
No,
little
it's
bit of
true.
an argument with that, but like it is representative and that's like to a point and that is like the world we live in where like that is kind of what people in our industry use as like an
Yeah.
argument to like, oh, this band did a headliner and every night they sold to 500 people or whatever like,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
I mean, you've got to pick a metric at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what I was saying. Like you can fake Spotify numbers, you can fake Facebook likes or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think there is objectively something that we can really look at to be like, okay, that's a thing, right? Like that's
Yeah.
how you calculate it.
No,
It's
for sure.
it's all situational, like it
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
is. But
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. It's just like, yeah, I was just trying to do your best,
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's something though, like, because we're talking about like numbers and stuff, and what actually matters, and things like this, and even to an extent of being with Bloodblast to be able to potentially get playlisted and stuff like that. But there's so much more, I guess, that goes into releasing music and getting on tours and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm sure you get the question all the fucking time, but we've been talking about doing things DIY and stuff like that. But in terms of labels, you say you don't necessarily agree with the fact of having a label. Is that just because of wrong opportunities, or like, is there a world where Angelmaker signs a record deal if the right deal is presented to you guys?
I don't know. I kind of just take everything as it comes a little bit, instead of like not everything. There's definitely like certain
Yeah, I get
things,
what you
like,
mean.
but I don't know, like, I guess like the biggest issue that I have with labels, and like now that I've been in the industry long enough and been doing this independently long enough, and just like,
Mm-hmm.
the more information that I've learned, and just whatever, all those kinds of things included, I I want to own my songs.
Yeah.
I want to own my songs. I spent
Mm-hmm.
all this time writing them, putting all this like blood, sweat, and tears into it, and then it's like for somebody else who just like basically sees you as a dollar sign, to
Mm-hmm.
just be like, "Hey, here, I own your music and you get this." Like, that
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't sit right with me, I guess. And
Yeah.
like, so I mean, if there was a and this is kind of why we're working with Bloodblast, but it's like if there was a scenario where a label was like, we'll sign you guys and you get to own all your masters, and here's the split of sales percentage
Yeah.
and whatever, all those kinds of things. Maybe, maybe I'd do
Mm-hmm.
it, but 99% of what labels do is like, you know, sign you for your masters. They want to
Yeah.
own the
They want to
material,
own the
and
music. Yeah.
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 So that's kind of like the biggest thing that kind of turns me off, signing. And I'm not to say just because, a record owns your masters that, you shouldn't be on a label and whatever. Like, everybody's different. Everybody's got different like things that they want
Well,
out of,
some people
you know.
just wouldn't care about signing off their masters, and
No,
that's to each their own.
exactly. Like, no,
Yeah.
no issue with that. Like, from my perspective, if that's like what works for you guys, and what you want, then why not do that?
Mm-hmm.
Especially since like labels have the ability to. I'll give you like two sides of the same coin on this, though. Labels have
Yeah.
the opportunity to give you a lot of money to make sure that you can buy all the things that you would need for a record release, like a really dope music video, production, all those kinds of other things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what like the advance is for. But a lot of people don't understand that most of the time, like 90% of
Well,
the
that's a
time,
loan. Yeah.
it's a loan. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you owe the money back. So,
Yeah.
I hear like I'm not naming any names, but I have a fan who was offered like $150,000 record deal,
Yeah.
and you're like, wow, that's crazy. Like, they just give you $150,000 like right up front,
Mm-hmm.
but you owe all that back,
Yeah.
and most of the time with some form of interest. It's not a high
Yeah.
percent, but like if you don't pay it back, you might have to pay more,
Yeah.
and they're not going to give you a goddamn dime until you pay that back. Like,
Yeah.
so
It's crazy to me because there's like it's I don't know, there's just this weird thing where you know the label sure is kind of betting on you in the sense
yeah,
that they don't really know if they're going to make the money back either, so it to a certain extent has to make sense for them,
yeah,
but ultimately the band's paying. Like,
yeah.
it's still the band that's taking, like, you're taking a $150,000 loan and you have to pay it back. It's not the label. So it's like,
No,
it's cool because they have the capital, but that just comes with like having money. But like,
exactly.
you could save that money on your own. Granted, like 150 grand is a lot of money, but yeah, I think a lot of people do see that in the way that it's kind of just like, oh, you get all these things paid for, and no, but it's
Yeah,
like, well, not really. Obviously, there's more to it than that when it comes to potentially like opportunities and
yeah. Like
an actual
what the
having like a
labels
team of staff to work
exactly.
for the band as well and stuff like
Yeah,
that. So I
yeah,
understand that aspect of it, but in terms of advances and stuff, I'd almost be more willing to take $1,000 loan
Yeah.
than like a super big loan and be trapped into it for the rest of your life, you know?
For sure. And that's where like I get it like in other genres. Like,
Hmm.
like I'm not you don't have to do it this way and there's artists doing it like differently and I'm going to use one genre as a example, but like in rap and hip hop like it's like the biggest, industry in the world right now.
Hmm.
Music-wise. I get like, some they want to sign Kodak Black for $3 million. Like I get it. You know what a like,
Yeah.
Interscope could do or like, Warner or Sony can do for like an artist that like they invest $3 million into, like probably a fucking lot. They can get you
Yeah.
on anything and everything. Like
Yeah.
so like I get it. And
Mm.
an artist like that probably, generates that amount of money on, a few tours and some merch drops and streaming sales like pretty quickly to a
Yeah.
point. So
Yeah.
like I get it.
If it
But
works, like we only hear
yeah.
about the artists that make it, but there's got to be a ton that are just scrapped for life.
Yeah. So
So,
I don't
yeah.
know. Yeah. One thing I like just because we're talking money and yeah, a lot of money and this and that and the
Mhm.
independent thing versus the record label thing.
Mhm.
One piece of advice that I would give to any band, but especially younger bands just like starting out,
Yeah.
and one thing that really helped us out in the like realm of just being able to be independent and support ourselves is
Mhm.
for the first few years of being in a band, just don't take any money. I know that
No,
sounds
that's
like
it.
crazy, but like
Everything back into the band. Well, yeah, for
no,
sure.
yeah, reinvest everything. Like, but it's crazy, like how many people I talk to, like younger bands and this and that, or
Mhm.
people, and they're like, "Oh, we got, we played we played a bar show for $200. Like,
Mhm.
you're like just starting out, whatever. You get $200 is
Yeah.
a lot. Don't split that money between 5 people. That doesn't make
Nah,
any
dude.
sense. Like,
No.
so what? You made $25. Like, who cares? Like, that's nothing.
Exactly.
Like,
Grand scheme of
and
things, that's like nothing. Yeah.
no, so like, and that's dope. Making money is dope. $25 for you
Mhm.
is a lot of money. That's awesome. But if you want to have a band be a business that can self-sustain itself, then you need to reinvest the money that you make into the band. And
Mhm.
we were a local band for years. Like, and that's one thing like a lot of people don't realize about us is like I've been in this same band for 11 years now. It's
Yeah.
a ton of time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, 2015 that like things started, kind of taking off. 2016 kind of, with like
Yeah.
things. But, from 2011 to 2015, we didn't take a dollar from the band.
Yeah.
Like everything that we made, merch drops, streaming, everything was reinvested into the band.
And
And
don't and I think this can't be overstated. You guys had a lot of hype. Like
yeah, no, for
things were
sure.
going,
Yeah.
right? Like money was obviously coming in, as
Well, and it's
compared
easy
to a
to
lot
say
of
like,
bands that weren't, like
yeah, well, and
it's not, we're not talking about the $100 bar show and that's it, like there were substantial amounts of money, and I think a lot of bands even at that point, you say wait it out, people would
yeah.
have jumped the gun probably earlier than you guys did.
For sure, yeah. Like it's easy to look at any amount of money, but a bunch of money in the band bank account and be like, well, why don't we just pay everybody this amount of money? It's like,
Mhm. Mhm. It's
yes,
tempting.
like it is. I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
It's right there. Like it's right there. We made that. Like,
Yeah.
but when when it comes around to being like, let's do a record, and a record
Yeah.
costs like $20,000, then it's like that
Y-
money's just like paid for. It's right there. Like we don't have to do
Mhm.
anything. We pay the money to the dude, show up, and it's just like done. Like
Yeah.
whatever it is, like buying a band van. We had to buy a van a few years ago. Well, we bought our first van and it was awful and it barely made it anywhere. And that's what you get for buying like a van for like I think it was like just under 3 grand. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, we bought like a band van a few years ago that's been great and is like a tank and taking us on all the tours that we've done in the past few years and like the band paid for it. Like I didn't have
Yeah.
to worry about anything. Like he just and so I don't want to like say it's easy. It's not easy to do any of those things, but I don't want to understress the importance of like reinvesting the money that you make from your band into your band and being
Yeah.
able to buy the things that your band needs through the funds that you have made as a band. So
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, if I can speak for myself, I mean, with Deps, we started giving ourselves like $5 per diems, like
yeah,
the last year I was in the band. You know, we never
Yeah.
we never took a fucking dime, but our records were paid for. You know,
Yeah.
we didn't
Yeah.
we didn't have to have anything paid out of, like, after the first few years, you know. For the
Yeah.
first few years, you know, we just weren't making money, so we were constantly reinvesting ourselves. But after a few years, I mean, we weren't taking any of our personal money to pay for to fund
No.
things. Music videos, we got it. It's chill. We have to buy a van. That's chill. You know, like all these things are such a stress and a burden on a band, and can create so much friction too and stuff like that for one person having a job but the other one doesn't. I mean, we're all like, if your goal is to tour, you know, that's going to probably be an issue with certain people. Like, not everyone's necessarily going to be able to have a job that's going to be consistent and going to be there when you come back from tour and stuff like that. So not having those bills and not having those expenses is like such a relief to have for a band. Like, you bring up a great point, because I do think I do think not a lot of bands typically think like that. Maybe, like you said, maybe younger, like up and coming bands and stuff, but like it'll be the same thing, just like, oh, we got this money, let's blow it at the bar. Like, use your own money, it's chill. And if you don't got it, it's chill. Like, you don't gotta, you know, like it's all right. Like, do you want to make more music? Do you want to continue doing this, or do you want to just get fucked up tonight? You know, like, it's one of those things.
Exactly.
I mean, you can treat yourself every now and then. That's cool. Like, don't you know? And if you've got the means, by all means, do it. But I think money is a big part of running a band.
Yeah, well, it's a balance, right? Like, on tour, like, we try to save like a lot of money and not ball out on like hotels every. You know, we get hotels, you know, sporadically through a tour, but like, you know, I know some bands that stay in a hotel every single night, like, which is fine, you know, but like we do save quite a bit of money just like doing things, and everyone's kind of grown accustomed to like how our band runs and does stuff. But like on the flip side, like sometimes it'll just be like band's paying for it, like whatever it is, like it's just like, oh yeah, we're going out for dinner tonight, just fuck it, band's paying for it, like, you know, like, because it's the balance, right? Like sometimes it's like, like some things it's like, no, everyone's paying for that themselves. If you don't have the money for it, then you're not gonna be doing that. Like, it's just what it is. But, you know, sometimes you know, the little treat yourself, like as a band, it goes both ways. But
obviously, no, for sure.
Reinvesting the money is important, super important.
And then, like you say, I mean, there's obviously a certain point as well where maybe you just do make that much money, and it's cool. Like, if you want to get a hotel room every night because you're making $1,000 every night, cool, by all means, you know. But I think definitely for the early stages, that's something that cannot be overstated, for sure.
100%.
I want to talk a bit about I guess in the past few years, obviously, you talked earlier about trying out a new drummer. You have Johnny that joined as well. Can you? I don't want to get into any specifics on why people left or anything. Like, I'm actually more curious about Johnny and bringing in a third guitarist and what the thought process there was. I know he was your guys' homie and stuff before joining the band, but can you speak to that a little bit? How that all came together?
Yeah, a little bit. Essentially, like, okay, so everybody in the band has their roles, as a band does. But primarily, a lot of the songwriting, like as a whole song, has always kind of not fallen, but been taken by Colton. Colton has wrote 90% of our material. From the beginning. Like, he wrote all of Decay, or 90% of Decay, and you know, the two split EPs.
Well, and he's been there from the start too, right? Matt came in a few years later.
But primarily, like, Matt, I'm not saying this in the sense that Matt doesn't write things. Matt writes things, but Matt doesn't write songs. So
no, that's it. He'll come in with the solos and leads and stuff like that, I'm assuming,
and harmonies and stuff like that. But he doesn't really write songs very often. And so, like, after the self-titled, like, everything was just like, you know, COVID and everything like that as well, like, kind of, you know, leaving on this high of doing all these awesome shows and this and that. Everybody was pretty drained. Like, that record also, like, I made a little post about this a little while ago, but like, I was in a pretty tough place, like, during that record, and then after that record, like, I lost my brother, so like, I was kind of all over the place, and Colton really, like, the self-titled was like 15 songs, and like he really like put everything into that record, and
Mm-hmm.
we were all kind of feeling a little dry, and Colton proposed the idea to like that he essentially needed somebody to be able to write material with us,
Yeah.
like, and he kind of felt, and I understand this idea as well, but like he kind of felt awkward having like somebody like Johnny just like as a ghost writer, like,
Right. Right. Right.
like why just have somebody else who's not in the band
People who don't
write?
even know he really like wrote
Yeah,
some of the
like
songs or helped on the record and stuff like
yeah,
that.
why have that be a thing instead of just like having him as a guitarist? And then the thing with Johnny too is like he's so talented at like everything that he does. So like
Yeah.
having him join the band, yeah, as a guitarist, but also
Mm-hmm.
as somebody who can do
Who
a
knows
little bit
vocals and stuff?
of
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, he can do vocals, he could play bass.
Mm-hmm.
I think Johnny, I don't know, I can't speak to this. Maybe he can play drums. I don't know. But he can do like a little bit of everything, and he's like he worked at a venue. He worked at the Vogue, same venue I work at, but he's worked there for so long, and he went to sound recording school and all this stuff. So like
Right,
he
because
has a
he does
really
recording and stuff as well,
yeah,
right?
like he has a
Yeah.
really good idea of like all the processes of what it is to be a band and play live and all those things. So
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of like, why not have Johnny join the band and just kind of be like a jack of all trades and help us out in many different ways. And then for this record, like Sanctum, specifically, like Colton wrote half the record and Johnny
Yeah.
wrote half the record.
Okay.
So
Cool.
um,
That's crazy. It doesn't really feel that way.
I know, and Johnny did such a good job at that. One of the and that's I love working with Johnny. I love
Yeah.
Johnny so much. One of his big goals for coming into the record and the band and the
Yeah.
record, was he wanted to write songs that felt like Colton's songs, but like from
Right.
his perspective. Like
Sure.
he's
Yeah.
he's already he like he said before, he's a huge fan of our band, and then
Mm-hmm.
being able to join the band, he didn't want to like,
He doesn't want to
you know,
change the band. He
no,
already likes it as it is, right?
yeah, he
Like,
likes what
yeah,
we
yeah.
do, and he likes and kind of likes whatever we've made for ourselves in terms of like our sound or whatever that kind of means. So
Yeah.
he wanted to write songs that sounded like Colton's songs or sounded like,
His
he's like, oh,
interpretation of that or whatever.
yeah, like, and a
Yeah.
lot of people talk about dissension like all the time, and like I love dissension as well, but it is
Mm-hmm.
it's a little hard to like feel like somehow follow that up one day. But
Well, dude, I love. Honestly, I had kind of put the self-titled on the back burner. No disrespect.
yeah,
But with Sanctum coming out, I kind of went back to it, and I was like, why wasn't I listening to this album? Both are really fucking good. They're different. Like
yeah,
both of them are different. I think Sanctum resembles the self-titled more than they do Dissentient
really,
style wise.
okay,
But I really enjoy there are a few new tricks. I noticed there's like a style of breakdowns that's all over Sanctum on the new record. I don't know how to describe it because I'm musically incompetent, but there's just you guys were used to doing the certain style of breakdowns, and there's like a new type of breakdown that came in on the new record that's kind of peppered all over the place, and I really enjoy it.
nice,
I think you guys obviously have always had that influence of old school like deathcore.
yeah,
Obviously,
yeah,
you guys have always kind of championed it too and been really vocal about it and the defend deathcore and all this stuff, you know. But I think that as time goes on, you guys have really taken that sound elsewhere while keeping certain elements. Like obviously there's still like the gang chants, there's still the
yeah,
samples and the songs and stuff like that. There are certain tropes or whatever you
yeah,
want to call them, clearly influenced from like old school deathcore, but I think it's progressed into a lot more of just a modern metal band, like modern
yeah.
death metal, modern deathcore, whatever you want to call it. And I find it really cool. I think if you guys had like because to your point, you're saying, oh, like to follow up like Dissentient, you know, if
Yeah.
I think you guys are taking it in the right direction, and rewriting the same record over and over again is, to me, I know some people would like that, but I much rather having like new things come into play, and that's what I really, especially with Sanctum, I really appreciate. You guys experimented a lot on the self-titled as well. I think Colton was doing a lot of vocals on that record too, right?
Colton's been doing vocals on the records for a while. He actually did some vocals on Dissentient as well. Like,
but I think they were a lot more like he had like proper like vocal, like a whole riff kind of like sections, right? Which maybe maybe I notice it more because there's like a distinct style to his vocal that maybe wasn't the same, or I don't know, but I don't know. It's cool. I really enjoy everything you guys are doing in terms of the style and how it's progressed throughout the years. It's really cool to see.
Thank you.
I have to say too, like from knowing you guys back in the day, like Dissentient for sure, like as you know, for Depths of Hatred and whatever, definitely like the darker kind of vibe, the like kind of like melodic tremolo riffs and just the style of melodicness that Matt was bringing to like his melodies and stuff like that, definitely played a big influence on Depths. Like we were already into that kind of stuff, but that's what made it like just gel, right? Like when I heard Angelmaker, I was like, oh, like I love that because that's what we're going for, kind of like not the style in itself. It's not like we were trying to do old school deathcore or whatever that style is, but the melodic element within deathcore, I think, really isn't something that was really done so much. You've seen that happen afterwards with bands like even like Aversion's Crown, you know, have gone a lot more melodic over the years and stuff like that too. But I think you guys were really one of those bands doing that, the tremolo riffs with the melody on top and just doing that super well.
Hell yeah. Yeah, melody is always like really important to the band. Like I love I don't know, I love breakdowny stuff, like and kind of, you know, stuff that's like, I don't know, just heavy for the sake of being heavy. And we have parts and portions of songs like that, but I don't know, I've always like had this draw to like melodic deathcore or like melodic death metal as well, but like I just always was like, oh, I just wish this like example, like a melodic death metal song had a breakdown or had like that one thing, like, you know, and that's why we've always been, all of us are huge fans of Black Dahlia Murder, and like I love their, you know, their tremolo riffs and their, you know, epic kind of chorus bits and stuff like that. So like that was always like a really big influence to us, and then just being able to be like, let's bring in some other stuff as well. Like I really like as well that like there's still bands doing it. The new Body Snatcher is nuts, but hardcore isn't as like prevalent in like deathcore these days.
Yeah,
it's a lot more like metalcore kind of combination stuff. And we definitely have some metalcore things in our music, but like we try to like bring a little bit more of like the hardcore stuff more forward than I think like some other bands do in our genre right now. So
I think Two Steps, for example, like in deathcore used to be a big thing, but that's completely lost now. Like we barely see that anywhere. Yeah, and it's weird because it was such a big part of what deathcore was, right?
Yeah.
Like there's you guys, but like even bands like Despised Icon and stuff just like had a very heavy hardcore element with like the Two Steps and all these things. I think that's actually a crazy good transition into I wanted to talk about a bit more kind of like maybe your upbringing with music and old school deathcore specifically, because I feel we both have the same background in terms of what we listened to and how we were listening to music back in the day. You're a few years younger than I am, but I probably got into it later than you did in terms of age, so it probably amounts to the same kind of thing. Were you like, I'm assuming you were a part of all the blog spots and the forums and the Daily Mosh, Total Deathcore, Deathcore Sexy, and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, all of that. Yeah.
It's I look back at those times fondly, and it's crazy because I want to talk to you and kind of reminisce for a bit, because I don't really get to talk to too many people that that have that background. And I mean, it's weird because I mean, there were people in these groups, but rarely
Yeah.
do I stumble upon people who were in it back then. I think it clearly shows looking at like your Deathcore FM like playlist on Spotify and stuff like that, and the
Thank
other
you.
playlists that you've got as well. Just how deep you were into like the
Yeah.
underground
Yeah.
deathcore, from back in the day. And as was I, So
Yeah.
it's been cool. It's been cool listening to your playlists, and the only regret that I have is that it's on fucking Spotify, and
Fair.
there's
Yeah.
so much that isn't there, right?
I
And that's
know.
by
I
no
know.
fault of your own.
I know. I'm begging bands all the time. I'm like, put it on Spotify. Like, I got you. Like,
Yeah. It's weird, man, because I think about this all the time. I mean, I've completely made the shift into I basically only listen to music on Spotify now, but I mean, I have a hard drive of my old computer with the craziest amounts of downloaded music, and like uh some of them full albums. After a while that became more of a thing on like the blog spots and
yeah.
stuff, but so much of it was just before that like downloading a single song off of
Yeah.
LimeWire and
Yeah.
hoping that it's named right and it's even the right band. And
Crash
then
my
like
computer.
yeah, and then rips from like directly from MySpace. Like fuck,
Yeah.
I have so many like ripped demos from MySpace bands from back in the day that are just non-existent. They're
Oh
like
yeah.
I'm sure a bunch of those bands don't even have those recordings anymore. And I
Oh, for
mean,
sure.
I only have like a 128 fucking
Yeah.
kilobit like recording of it, like ripped from MySpace or whatever. But it's crazy to think about. Do you ever think about that? The I guess the transition from digital media and well into digital media, and I guess it's not even it being physical or not. I mean, because I have most of the music I own is digital, but just the fact that you don't own it anymore, that it's kind of just you hope it's on a platform, and if it's not, it's lost. Like what happens in 20 years when we don't have Spotify anymore?
Yeah, I still have some friends who like I can kind of trust that have like all that stuff
Oh, you've got
like
Baker in your
saved.
life,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, okay.
Baker, and then yeah, there's a few other people I've met through like some of the there's a
So
MySpace
those,
Facebook group,
yeah,
which is really cool. Like there's some people in there that are like obviously really committed to like that period of time.
yeah.
And yeah, but like I found that like I think I own in some form or another most of the music that I do like. Like
Mm-hmm.
and that's just not to say just because I don't own it, I don't like it. It's just all the bands that I
Yeah,
like
'cause people are going to be
really
looking in your library real
no.
quick.
But
Mike
like
hates this band. He doesn't have it.
no, I mean like on my computer, like I
Yeah, yeah,
have most of the bands that like that are nostalgic to me that are like I loved this band breaking up, like this demo that I have,
yeah,
this whatever, like I have most of those files in some physicality. So
yeah,
like I can kind of sleep easy having that. There
yeah.
is like more
Is there a
modern
cutoff
records.
point to that though?
Yeah,
Because
because
that's for me. I mean, 2012 forward, I just don't. I don't have
no,
anything.
for sure. Like there was still like a few years ago, like I was still attempting to download records, like, but
Hmm.
then I just started feeling like I don't
You
know,
can't
like
find them anymore.
no,
That's the
it's a lot
crazy
harder.
part. Because
It's a lot harder.
no one's uploading underground deathcore bands to fucking blog spots anymore.
No,
They're
they're
hard to
all on
find
like
now.
you have to go on like SoulSeek and stuff like
Yeah,
that. They'll like find that stuff and like it's all like the Daily Mosh is still a thing.
yeah, I know.
Like
Yeah, I log in
yeah,
every now and then. That's
yeah,
crazy to
it's
me.
crazy. Um, but yeah, like I don't know, like I also like have this opposite reaction where like I just get stoked that bands that maybe didn't have as much traction in the past or whatever, or not even traction now, like they know how, Spotify is like this, like it's not just Spotify, it's any of the like the,
Yeah.
the digital streaming platforms. Um, but like how important they are now, and you're having like these bands that were like tiny little obscure bands like posting their music to Spotify, and like
And
that's what
blowing
I
up. Yeah.
well, I'm or not even though, but like, but
Oh
just the
yeah, yeah.
fact that they're there, I'm like, that's sick. Like,
Right, right. It's
I'll
more
like,
accessible than ever. That's for sure. Yeah.
yeah, well, like I used to love this band, still love them. They're a band called Postmortem Promises,
Well, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, but like, they pretty much like signed to Soar and put out
yeah.
like that full record, that full length record,
Hmm.
and then that was pretty much
That's
it.
it.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and the self-titled and like We Play Weddings, like the EP, like they're pretty much just YouTube relics at this point.
Yeah.
They uploaded both those EPs to Spotify recently. Like you can listen to
Yeah, I saw that because of your
yeah.
playlist, and I was like, wait, what?
I get like
There's actually
so
you
sick.
actually went and
Like
found a lot of like fairly obscure stuff that I would have bet all my money was not gonna be on Spotify. They're even labeled as like '09 demo, like in
yeah.
parentheses or whatever, like.
Yeah, but like that gets me stoked. Like I don't know
Hmm.
what it is. It's like it almost like gives me the same vibes as like you made me feel like like tearing up with like the blog stuff. Like I used
Yeah,
to like be so obsessed with the blogs. Like Deathcore is sexy for
yeah,
sure. Like that was like my
yeah,
main blog. I definitely like Daily Mosh, I think Chugcore, Duckcore, Total
yeah,
Deathcore. Yeah, those were I think most of the main ones, but like Deathcore Sexy was like I went there like every day, like and
yeah.
multiple times a day to see
Yeah,
like
I
what
was
was
on
being
the
uploaded.
refresh and the little
Yeah,
chat up top, and yeah.
constantly. Yeah. And I loved that time period. Like you could like everything was just so laid out. Like you had the genre, like most obviously it was deathcore, but it'd be like, oh, death metal deathcore or metalcore
Yeah,
deathcore
exactly. Yeah.
or tech deathcore or whatever, and you were like, oh, cool. And then track titles and then the artwork and everything, and it was
Oh,
just
and
so
you could
like
just find a link to like a song like at the bottom, to so
yeah
you could immediately check it out without even having to download it. Then you end up
yeah.
liking the band. Okay, download. That's it. Easy as that.
Sweet. And like I just
Yeah.
love that like era of time. Like and I
Hmm.
do feel like very privileged to have lived through that and like to have like, other people like you that are like, I remember that and I'm like, that's awesome. Like
Yeah.
so it's not just me. Like
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah. But I mean, it kind of feels that way. But
it does.
there was a
It
there was a
does.
full community, but it's kind of disbanded. Like
Yeah,
it's like the band broke up,
for
and you
sure.
just don't talk anymore. Yeah.
Well, like, and even some of my friends who like I would consider to be like big deathcore fans now, or like maybe they don't listen to deathcore like every day. Like I'm definitely
Yeah.
pretty like fucking deathcore professor guy or something, but like a lot of my friends are like, I don't remember any of that, or like I never went to
Yeah.
blogs to download anything. I'm just like, that's crazy. Like that's
Yeah.
like how I like because
That's how
I'm
I got into
younger.
music.
Well, yeah, and I'm younger, so like I definitely like admittedly like I talk about MySpace all the time and like loving the
Yeah.
MySpace era of deathcore and this and that, but
Hmm.
admittedly like I didn't have a MySpace
Tail end of that. Yeah.
and I was too young to really understand like how to use a MySpace and how like a MySpace really like worked. Um I was just too young, like,
Yeah.
and like I had a Facebook. My first Facebook was made in 2007. So like,
Yeah.
but there's people who are like on MySpace in like '05 and all
Yeah.
like that stuff. So like I was in grade 5. Like I didn't know
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
fucking anything about the internet. Like and so yeah, like I knew MySpace because of the blogs. Like you would go
Yeah.
to like
That's it.
those blogs and they'd be like, "Oh, here's the band's website," and it would take you to MySpace. So like
Right.
I
Right. Right.
I knew what MySpace was through those things, and I understood that like bands were using that as a platform to like
To
spread their
promote
music
themselves and
and
stuff.
promote
Yeah.
themselves. And like I understood all that. I just never had a MySpace.
Right. But
And
at least you still remember what MySpace looked like
oh
in
yeah,
in
yeah,
its
the
first form,
layout.
right? Because that
Yep,
did change over time.
yep,
But I mean,
yeah,
if you were checking out music, at least you know what the music player and the layouts were and all that
yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah, it had tour dates if they were on
Yeah, yeah,
tour and all that other stuff. And yeah, like the first image, if it was formatted, like their page was formatted, was like this big top
yeah.
kind of banner.
Those were
And
always the
then yeah,
coolest. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It
you were
was.
like,
It didn't even look like a MySpace anymore. It was just like a big ass website with the player in the middle.
yeah, it was sick.
Yeah, it was
Um,
awesome, man. Yeah.
yeah, but like I think that's why like I'm so imprinted into like that era is because I got into metal probably grade like 6 of like of my kind of start, and that was definitely
Yeah.
like you know, first it's like and I transitioned pretty quickly through these things, but like it was
Hmm.
first like obviously like you hear bands like Metallica and Slayer and you know all those kinds of things, and that was through my
Yeah,
dad. Like my dad would listen to, like he
that's what
didn't
he
listen to
listened
like
to.
yeah, like I would say it's a little bit more rocky. Like one of his favorite bands of all times is like Deep Purple, and like I love Deep
Yeah.
Purple, but like I wouldn't consider them really like a metal band per se,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know. So like, but yeah, he listens to Metallica, Guns N' Roses, kind of all that stuff. That's more like heavy metal.
Yeah.
And that was like what I first was like, oh, like I remember asking my dad to like borrow like Appetite for Destruction like on CD and just be like, I want to listen to Guns N' Roses, like, you know, back when you had like Discmans and stuff like that
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah. Yeah.
iPods. And that was kind of like my first exposure, and then like I think I like had heard like I started getting into like that new metal phase of like I heard Disturbed, and like I remember the first time I ever heard screaming vocals was friend of mine in, I think it was grade 6. It might have been grade 7, but I think it was grade 6. He showed
Yeah.
me Avenged Sevenfold,
Yeah.
like sounding the seventh trumpet or whatever the first record is, and like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then he showed me like Waking the Fallen, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like I never heard anything like that before, and I didn't
Yeah.
like love it, but I was like, this is cool. And then it was like, you know, then you get into like Atreyu and Bullet for My Valentine and like Slipknot and kind of all that stuff. Like that was like
Yeah.
seventh grade for me. Which so like every year, this is also a little weird tidbit. 2006 I was in grade 6, 2007 I was in grade 7,
Yeah.
2008 I was in grade 8. So like
Oh, you
every
have it like
year,
that. I have my age that follows. So I was born in '90, so it's like I was 10 in
yeah,
2000, and then like
yeah,
it was like
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was like what worked for me. So like example being like why I love MySpace and everything so much is like grade 8. I
Oh,
was like
right.
I was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
So you know what year
2008.
that was.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
it was 2008, and like that year was like that's still my favorite year of deathcore, like
Okay.
hands down. Like I think like 2008 just had something else that no other year had.
Mhm.
2007 and 2009, like those 3 years are like integral to me, I think in terms of like what our whole genre is.
Yeah.
But I remember being in grade 8 and this kid coming up to me and be like, "Oh, you like metal?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Let me show you this." And it was fucking Entombment of a Machine by Job for a Cowboy. And I
Yeah.
was like, "What the hell am I listening to?" Like I just thought it
Yeah.
was like the craziest thing I've ever heard. And I hated it at first. I was like, "This is
Yeah.
too crazy. I'll never be like one of those kids. This is no, there's not even words. It's all just like random screaming and crazy and like yeah." But something about it, like literally from that day to like
It just clicked.
a month later, I was just like, I can't actually stop listening to it. Like I
Yeah.
wanted to like understand it like more.
Mhm.
And that was like right when I started getting into deathcore, and then it was you know Job for a Cowboy, Whitechapel, Suicide Silence, Carnifex, like Black Dahlia Murder,
Yeah.
not deathcore, but all those kinds of bands that I was like,
Yeah,
wow,
but
like
Black Dahlia Murder is always like a weird one, but they were heavily lumped into the whole
deathcore,
deathcore like
yeah. Even
scene
though
and
they
everything.
never
They were
been,
going on
yeah,
tour with deathcore bands.
yeah,
Like that's what they were, you know.
yeah. But yeah, it was kind of like all that like 2008. I was just like
Mhm.
grade 8. Like I was so like this is all I ever like want. And then
Yeah.
like yeah, the internet is like accessible as a kid in like early high school. Like I had like computer classes and stuff like that. So like in class, like I'd be
Yeah.
like deathcore sexy, like looking stuff up, like oh this new record dropped today, like you know.
Yeah.
And it was like 2009 that Colton and I met. He was going
Okay.
to a different high school than I
Mhm.
was, but we all like skateboarded. So like we had friends like from both high schools that skateboarded. We like meet at the skate
Right.
park and whatever.
Yeah.
And then also like actually kind of important to like my relationship with Colton is Halo 3.
Okay.
That was like, you know, you get home from school and you're like, we're
Yeah.
all getting online and playing Halo 3, like all your
Yeah,
buddies.
yeah,
So I remember playing Halo with Colton through like another buddy who was like, "Oh yeah, this is my buddy Colton." Like we're all just you know playing Halo, killing people and whatever
yeah.
each other. And he's like, "Yeah, Colton loves metal too." And then Colton and I start talking, and Mac, stop. And Colton's like, yeah, I just went to Avenged Sevenfold like last week with Atreyu and Bullet for My Valentine was supposed to play, but they didn't. And I was like, I
Okay.
was literally there. And he was like,
Yeah,
no
yeah,
way. So then like we start talking like that, and then yeah, so we started like talking about deathcore, and he liked deathcore and getting into metal, and that kind of like started the relationship between like him and I, and kind of like where we are now with like
Yeah,
being in a band
eventually forming the
together. So
band and going in that
yeah,
direction. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I've been like deathcore through and through like my whole life. There was a few years, the past few years, I did kind of fall off on it. Like I think like
Hmm.
2016 to like 2019 or so, like for like those kind of 3 years, I was like, yeah, I mean deathcore's cool, but I'd listen to my old stuff that I was like, grew up loving, but I like started like experimenting into enjoying other genres of music, and
Yeah.
because I was like a deathcore kid through and through in the early
Yeah.
stages, I was like, if it's not deathcore, I don't fucking want to hear it. Like, and then yeah, like we put out Dissension and stuff like that, and I was in a band and doing this and that. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna listen to like hip hop and rap, and like I'm gonna listen to like post hardcore and hardcore, and just like
So you got
figure
into
out
other
different
genres
stuff.
fairly late.
Yeah, like I didn't listen to like a lot of that stuff earlier. Like a lot of
Hmm.
friends, it's always funny having a conversation with them where I'm like, oh, I used to listen to metalcore, and then they're like, oh, you like Attack Attack or Asking Alexandria or fucking A Day to Remember or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, no,
Nah,
like
never.
I didn't
Yeah.
listen to any of those bands like at all.
Yeah.
Um, I like went through like the like easy accessible metalcore phase, being like, yeah,
Yeah.
Atreyu, Slipknot, whatever, all those kinds of things, and
And
then
they're
just like
real quick into.
just out of it
Yeah.
completely. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I like Lamb of God, and but like,
Hmm.
yeah, you move out of that super quick, and then I was just like full-fledged like deathcore only. And yeah, and then it took me like years to kind of get into like pop punk and post-hardcore and kind of like those other genres, and hardcore itself. Like it took me
Hmm.
so many years. I was very like judgy about that stuff. I
So
like,
you were a bit of a snob.
oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So. But these
That's.
days I'm open to everything, and like I actually only in the last like I don't know 2 years really like started getting back into deathcore, and really
Yeah.
like that's when I started making those playlists, and
Hmm.
still making the playlists, and I
Well,
listen to
you're
deathcore
constantly
like,
updating them and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, like I have a playlist that nobody sees that
Hmm.
has literally 10,000 deathcore songs in it, and I
Jesus.
put it on shuffle when I have free time, and I'm like, that
Yeah.
song sucks or that song's awesome. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Kind of filter it out.
yeah, but yeah, deathcore is always it's always been right there,
Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, I don't want to talk like too much about myself, but I've definitely went through like listening to Linkin Park for years.
Oh
So
yeah.
there was like there was some screaming in there, so that kind of got me acclimated to the whole
I
screaming
guess
thing
I
to
guess
a
that's
bit.
true. That was probably my first exposure too, because I think I was like grade like 5 or something, and I was like, Linkin
Yeah.
Park feels me. Like,
Yeah. It's fucking heavy.
yeah, yeah,
But so there was that, but then I got a kind of similar story in the sense that my friend got me the this self-titled from Alexis on Fire,
yeah,
and their first record, and he was just like, "Oh, listen to the intro to this first song on the CD," and it's just the super fucking drawn out like doo 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 for fucking ever. But then it
yeah,
starts screaming, but like it's not Alexa on Fire today. It's like really fucking raw and like pretty
yeah,
shitty screaming. I
yeah,
hated it. I was
yeah,
like, turn that shit off. I like, thanks for the CD, but like, fuck that.
yeah,
And it was kind of like you. It was like the more I was away from it, I just kept thinking about it more and more. And like a month later, I was like, oh, I don't have anything else to listen to. I'll like get back into it. Like I'll
yeah.
give it a second shot. And for whatever reason, it clicked. And I've never looked back, but I definitely went through like emo and post-hardcore before getting into like deathcore. I guess
Fair.
deathcore at that time wasn't really much of a thing. And then I'm pretty sure just through being on MySpace, because emo and post-hardcore was on MySpace too, I eventually stumbled upon some form of like heavier stuff like deathcore and death metal. But then Baker's the one, he shared me his Soul Seek, and he was like, he gave me a list of bands to download, and anywhere from like, there was like the Entombment of Machines and the Black Dahlia Murders and stuff like that. But there was also some like more some Decapitated and Cephalic Carnage. There was some death metal in there as well. But going through it, it's the deathcore that really stuck with me, and then just like going through those bands afterwards, just stumbled upon the blog spots and all those things. And it's, I've never really looked back. I've always still had like emo and post hardcore and that general stuff in the background as well. So I've never just listened to deathcore, but it's definitely been that love that I've had like since I've listened to it till now. Like, there's not a genre that I enjoy more. And in recent years, I've gotten a lot more into some more pop and stuff like that. Like, I love Ariana Grande. Like, she's one of my favorite, like probably some of my most listened to music now, but
bro.
dude, I mean, it's well written fucking shit, like,
I mean,
but if you ask me like what I think the best genre ever is going to be deathcore, like, for sure. And I don't know, it's just weird because, I mean, obviously things progress like as time goes on, and the transition to Spotify, and then having less and less of these blogs and all these things, but it's still weird. Like, there hasn't been much of a replacement for finding music, I feel, as like, it's more accessible. Like, you can more easily find bands, but I feel like the recommended stuff on Spotify always kind of like loops in the same kind of bands. I honestly probably get more from YouTube recommendations at this point.
True.
But that's strictly because I have like a YouTube account that I made separate for listening to music, so that all the recommended stuff that I get on that one is actually music related. Because if I jumble that together with everything, I watch a lot of like esports and gaming and whatever, vloggers and whatever other things, music gets drowned out, so it's not there either. So it's kind of weird. I'm at a weird place right now where I guess that's the point of this channel, is trying to share my love of deathcore and share new bands and put on some new bands, to people that maybe don't really know where to look for music, outside of that. But I mean, I don't know about you, but going on like Reddit and Facebook groups and stuff like that, it's so toxic. I don't mean to shit on like an entire like community, but man, I can't hop onto like our deathcore anymore. It's Will Ramos this, CJ McCreary that, and like it's all the same things, and people kind of shitting on each other for their opinions, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's weird because theoretically Reddit is like kind of the same thing as what we had on blog spots to a certain extent, especially if you take like the forums, like if you look at like the Daily Mosh, that's exactly the same thing, but no one was shit talking in there,
No,
so it's
rarely.
So there's definitely been like a shift, and I don't know if it's just because the age group, or like the demography, is that the word? That's not a word. The demographic for the genre has shifted to like something else, or just that's what the internet is now. But, and I feel old saying that, but
it is now. I think, honestly, I just think that's what the internet is, man. It's like everybody just thinks their opinion is like gold, and it's just like everybody cares about what the opinion is. It's like, man, like, I don't care at all. Like, and that's where like my access for music is like strictly Spotify, and I don't ever listen to recommended playlists on Spotify. Like, I just like randomly find, I don't even know how I find bands, but I just kind of cruise through it, and like, I don't use YouTube really anymore. I don't use any of the Facebook blogs, like, or groups or whatever, like, and I don't I don't go on like I don't even have a Reddit account. Call me crazy, but
It's
um,
probably for the better, my dude.
but yeah, like I don't know. I just like I also feel the same way where it's like I just don't care about what other people think. Like I just
No,
it
that's
doesn't
it.
make any difference to me at all.
Yeah,
Like I see it. I'm on social media, so like
yeah.
I see stuff like, YouTube comments I do see
Hmm.
Facebook comments and this and that, but I don't like use those platforms necessarily to like find new music myself, and I just like with new music that's coming out from like bands that are in the deathcore genre and like within the genre that I'm in, like
Hmm.
I pay attention to what's going on. Like I
Yeah.
know of like up and coming bands and I'll listen to a single of theirs or this and that, but like it takes me quite some time to like really enjoy new deathcore these days.
Okay.
Call me old, but
Yeah.
um like there's songs here and there, but I also just like I let I don't know, I like kind of just like try to not be influenced by like what other people are talking about right now. Like, like if like
Right.
band A is like the sickest band ever right now, like you have to listen to them, like
Yeah.
chances are I'm not going to listen to them
Yeah.
because you said that. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
might
Yeah. Yeah.
listen to them because I'm curious, but I'm not going to
Hmm.
like I'm not listening to them because like somebody's like this is the best band you've ever heard. Like
Yeah.
I'd rather like find things on my own time, I guess, and just be like, oh, like yesterday I was like, I just wanted to check out the new Body Snatcher record. Didn't hear anybody talk about it. I like,
Hmm.
people are, but I wasn't anybody's like opinion that was like, you got to listen to
That's
new
not what
Body Snatcher.
swayed you to listen to it.
No,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just
You were
was
just
like, you know what?
genuinely interested. Yeah.
Oh, pick it up and like, listen to it. And then it was like, yeah, like, first few songs in, I'm like, okay, I'm in for the ride. Like,
Yeah.
and then like on the other end of things, it's like I'll listen to a band's song that just came out, and then I'll listen to it and be like, yeah, not my thing. And then I just probably won't revisit it like in
Yeah.
so
Are you more picky as time goes on? I know I am, like in terms of recording quality and songwriting and stuff like that. I feel like when I was 16, 17, anything anything was a 10 out of 10. Like the shittier it sounded, it was almost the better, right? Whereas I feel like I have a lot less of a tolerance for that sort of stuff now, which probably hinders me. But I mean, there's songs that I click off of after a second because I'm like, nope, can't deal with the sound. Are you kind of like that too?
I'm not. I guess it's because I still listen to so much fucking MySpace
Hmm.
music that
Hmm.
like I
Yeah,
don't.
but
I'm
there's
not
something about it. I feel like to me, it's like I guess it makes sense in the
in
in
the
the
time period.
context.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the time period, and like that specific sound from back then doesn't really isn't really like we've got new recording technologies and things inherently sound different. Even if it's like a bad recording today,
Yeah.
it's not going
I
to
know
sound
it's
how it
so
sounded like
no, it
10,
sounds
15 years ago. So
clean bad now. Like yeah.
yeah, which is really bad in my opinion. Like I
Oh yeah.
can't
No,
when
for
it's like
sure.
super programmed, super like
Well, like
way too clean and
I'm
stuff.
I'm like both ends. Okay, so like I don't mind if it's demo-y, but if it suits the
Yeah.
music, like you don't have to go to like the biggest record engineer to have a good sounding record. You could record it
Hmm.
all yourself, and like I'm not that much of an audiophile to be like, yeah, you know what, the drum tone, trash. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I can't really
Yeah.
pick out like those very specific things. Like, yeah, I might be like, oh, guitar tone, it's okay, or vocal this and that,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not so picky on like the negative side of things. I think it's because I listen to like so much like power violence and like grindcore and wild shit
Okay.
that
Yeah.
sounds
Okay.
like terrible as well.
Yeah.
So I can kind of get over it. Um, like in terms of being like, it's not the best quality, but it's
Hmm.
listenable. If the riffs are dope, if the vocals are
Yeah.
dope,
Well, for
like
sure. I mean, music first, obviously,
yeah.
but
So like I'm not really so concerned on that side of things. I actually have an issue mostly with the overproduction. There's some
yeah.
bands that like I just don't enjoy listening to because it sounds like computer music to me. It just sounds
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
everything's like so fake that it's just like, tuned perfectly, like vocals are like quad layered and like everything. It's just like I don't really
Yeah. Yeah.
like that as much. I like a little bit of like, like natural kind ofness to it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, on context of like those two things, I definitely like. I'm kind of split, but yeah, like I don't really like when things are overproduced, and then there's a level of being like we have so much like freedom in our hands and technology now to like make things sound good. So like if it sounds really really bad, it's like come on, man. Like you
Yeah.
know,
What are you doing? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more accessible than ever, I guess. But it's to me, there's kind of like there's like a side of it too that I think if you look at top tier like engineers or people that are doing recordings in a bigger capacity, there's probably usually going to be a mix of both, right? There is something to having a good sounding album, but also having it sound somewhat natural, right? And I think
Yeah.
there to add to that, there are even more ways now to sound natural, even if it's fake or digital or helped out with, you know? So that's
Yeah.
where it kind of gets me where like if it's too clean, that's kind of goes back to what you were saying. Like that's the new shit recording is like that recording that's just too clean that has
Okay.
like
Yeah.
the like no variable to like the hits on the blast beat and it's just like on a grid and everything sounds like overproduced. It's like, yeah, that's not cool, man. But
Yeah.
I'm with you. I mean, there are certainly like a ton of examples like there are just some bands that I just inherently prefer a raw sound that they have. Like if we look at like, we'll go back to Acacia Strain. They had like a split that they did where they had demo versions of Terminated and The Hill Have Eyes. And
Yeah.
like the Wormwood by all means sounds great. Like it's not it sounds fucking amazing, but it's really clean sounding. And listening back to the demos, like having heard those first, I was like, I immediately when I heard Wormwood, I was like, I'm not feeling the mix. But like,
You know
it's
what?
inherently, it's not a bad mix, but it's just I love the raw side to the demos. Like,
You know what's so funny about a Casey Strain? I have this conversation with people all the time. That band is 100% a band that is representative of the age you are.
okay,
More than any other deathcore band because Wormwood is my favorite record of theirs and it will never not be my favorite record of
yeah,
theirs.
yeah,
But I have tons of friends who are like about your age who are like, "Oh, Continent," or like they, and I'm just
yeah,
like, or the Dead Walk, and I'm like, I just don't like those records that much. Like
yeah,
to be honest, like even
yeah,
living through it, like I don't know, the recording quality, good
yeah.
things, no, they're fine. Like I was never a big Acacia Strain fan until Wormwood, and then when I talk to most people like my age, like I'm 27,
Yeah.
28. What am I talking about? But most people who are born like 94, like I am, they're all like, "Oh, Wormwood," like that's their favorite record. And then people who are born like, 1990 or 92, 91, they're all like Dead Walk, Continent. Like I just
Yeah,
it's so and it's
yeah,
always that band because any
yeah.
other band that is brought up, it's like, people are like, "Oh, Suicide Silence is Cleansing." Yeah, it's probably their best record.
Yeah,
Like,
there are like clear classics or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
like in Job for a Cowboy, it's a little over the place depending on whether you like death metal or
Yeah,
not. But
yeah.
like, like a lot of people will be like, "Oh, Somatic Defilement, like that's the shit," and then I'm like,
Yeah,
"That's the shit." Like, like This Is
yeah.
Exile was also dope, but like, yeah,
Yeah.
Somatic is pretty dope. But like,
Yeah.
a Casey Strain is always for me, no matter when I have the conversation, people are always like, it's either Deadwall Continent or Wormwood, and it's split between the age. I
Yeah.
always
You
find that.
don't ask a person's age anymore. You ask them what their favorite
What's
Acacia
your
Strain
favorite
album is.
occasion album? I see continent. I'm like, that's how old you are. All right.
That's so good, man. Oh man, I don't know, man. I'm looking at this. Oh, we're almost at the 2 hour mark. I don't wanna take up too much of your time.
Oh, dude, I'm fun.
I really enjoyed this talk, man. It's really cool to talk to you. I know we don't talk like super often. It's usually when we see each other in person that we get to actually talk. And
Yeah.
pandemic kind of makes it so that hasn't been the case in the past few years. But it was great catching up, man. It's been really
Thank you
cool
for having me.
seeing what Angelmaker's been doing in the past few years, despite everything. And I'm really fucking stoked on this release and the tour that's coming up. Dude, can we talk about that for a second? Like,
Yeah, for
how
sure.
fucking stacked is that tour, man?
Man, yeah. No,
That,
it's a dream come true, honestly. Like I've always wanted to tour with Suicide Silence, get to finally tour with them.
yeah,
Carnifex, I've always wanted to tour with them. Love Carnifex, get to tour with them.
yeah,
Um, Lorna Shore is fucking like the
Yeah,
biggest
Dan.
band on earth right now, almost.
Mm-hmm.
But like they're crushing it. Can't wait to
Yeah.
tour with Lorna. We got to tour with them a little bit on Summer Slaughter a few years back, so like
Yeah,
it'll be
that's true.
good to hang out with them again. Yeah, Pond Burning Body still huge. I didn't realize how
Yeah.
big that band still is. They're fucking huge, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. And they're
I kind
kind
of
of going back to a more deathcore sound. Have you heard their latest material?
no, I haven't.
They put
No.
out a new song like not too long ago, and it's actually pretty fucking good. Like I'm stoked on it. I had kind of fallen off of Upon a Burning Body, but the song's actually really good. You should go check it out.
I will. I will. Yeah, because I love their
Well,
first
you'll
two
have a chance to
records.
hear it all tour, but
Yeah,
you know.
I love their first two records though.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever the first two were called, I don't remember. But those two records were awesome, and then I kind of fell off on them.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
they had like a 3 song like demo EP or whatever that's even better than anything else that they've put out, which
yeah,
is
true.
really fucking good. But
Okay, I don't think I've heard that.
okay,
Surprising.
I'll search the hard drive. I'll send a link.
All right, I'm down. Um, yeah, no, it's stoked to tour with them, and then yeah, we got Signs of the Swarm, who are just
Yeah,
crushing. Like
crushing it
they're so
too. That's
heavy.
it.
They're so fucking heavy, and David is like, so many talented vocalists on this tour. Like Will is an incredible vocalist,
Hmm.
but David also has always surprised me with just like how crazy his tone is. I was a big fan of his band before he joined Signs, called them
Yeah,
Providence.
yeah,
They're dope as well. So yeah, it's gonna be super sick to like stoked to play with them. And then Distance also
yeah.
crushing it. So
They're fucking heavy as balls,
yeah,
man. That's
it's gonna
cool.
be a crazy
First time
tour, man.
overseas for them too, so that'll be cool.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be so sick. It's kind of a little nerve wracking just because like we were like I was like full tour mode like 2019, like
Yeah,
did a
yeah,
bunch of tours.
yeah.
I was like right in there. It's like can't phase me. Now years off, and this is the first tour back. I'm a little
A
nervous.
little
A,
jitters coming in.
a little nervous, yeah. So yeah, but it'll
No,
be
but that
fun.
you guys are gonna crush it, man. I'm sure, and
Thank you.
it's really it's one of those lineups that's so cool in the sense that it's got like these legends at this point. You know, these
Yeah,
such prominent bands in the deathcore genre specifically, and then to also have all these really hot younger bands coming in to play with them too. It's a cool deathcore tour. We don't have too many single genre tours anymore,
yeah,
and this one's one of the good ones for sure.
yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Yeah, I can't
Well,
wait.
all right, man. It was great. It was great having you, man. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
again
so much for having me,
for
man.
taking the time, and
No worries.
I'll
No
talk
worries.
to you soon.
All right, take care. Thank you so much.
All right, see you, man.
See ya.
All right, I am just going to close this off real quick. Again, thank you to Mike for being on the channel, doing the first interview here. Hopefully, we get to do more of these in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you're new here, consider subscribing, and more importantly, if you're into anything that we talked about in terms of the blog spots and the finding new deathcore music and all that stuff, I've got a Discord server, which is basically my attempt at recreating that kind of stuff. Just kind of talking about music and sharing new bands as they come out and new music and stuff. So pretty heavily focused on deathcore and this channel as well. So again, if you guys are into any of that stuff, do check out the link down in the description. And that's it. I usually stream here every Saturday. So if you're in for some more metal news, watching new bands and stuff like that, I guess I'll see you there. So thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.